Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back.
So, guys, we are looking at the Pleiades.
Oh, they're so beautiful. It's soothing just to look at them.
It is. It most definitely is. And we're going to be talking about the Pleadians and what we have gotten from them as far as, who are they? What's their life like? What's their worlds like? What do they know? What do they want to share? What do they want to get across to us? One thing I find interesting, and we were just talking about this, space.com, the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. The Seven Sisters are famous from Greek mythology as well, and the daughters of a Titan. Yet, when you read what they tell us in the mainstream about the Pleiades, is that, the brightest stars of the Pleiades glow a hot blue and form within the last 100 million years. So they're making it like it's too young to have any advanced life there. But we know that usually whatever the mainstream's going to give us, kind of the opposite's true.
Right. And, my belief is, and my feeling is that all of us have some type of Pleiades in us, some sort of blood or DNA energy, something to do with these beings. They feel very close to humans, and they also feel like they watch over us a lot.
Yeah, it's easy because when you look at all the, say, medieval depictions of angels, they very much look Pleiadian, quote unquote. The Pleiades are a group of more than 800 stars, located about 410 light years from Earth in the constellation Taurus the Bull. Most skywatchers are familiar with the assembly, which looks something like a smaller, hazier version of the Big Dipper in the night sky. It's pretty easy to pick them out. Also known as the Seven Sisters and Messier 45, the object derives its English name from a Greek legend. The Pleiades are the seven daughters of the Titan god Atlas, the Atlas that holds up the world, right? And that's an interesting connection there, because in some ways they do protect us for sure.
I do feel that. I feel like they watch over us, they protect us. Some people have more Pleiadian in them than others, though, when we read people or we're doing a session on people. But they do seem to have a keen interest in our evolution.
They do. They most definitely do. So, as we're saying, the Pleiades are the seven daughters of the Titan god Atlas and the ocean nymph Pleionine. During an ancient war, Atlas rebelled against Zeus, the king of the gods, who sentenced his foe to forever hold up the heavens on his shoulder. The sisters were so sad that Zeus allowed them a place in the sky in order to be close to their father. The Pleiades are an example of an open star cluster, a group of stars that were all born around the same time from a gigantic cloud of gas and dust. The brightest stars in the formation glow a hot blue and were formed within the last 100 million years, so they say. They are extremely luminous and will burn out quickly with lifespans of only a few 100 million years, much shorter than the billions of years our sun will enjoy. But do you trust the mainstream there? That's the question. As we know, we don't. And usually it feels like there's complete misdirection as well. And I've shared with you guys, because I was always fascinated with astrology and astronomy, both. And so I remember reading into the life cycle of stars and really delving into that. And everything that we have nowadays is way different than what we had, growing up in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, everything has changed so much. How we perceive things that they teach us, our history. Just think 30 years ago, this place is unrecognizable.
So they're extremely human-like, extremely. Typically, they're Nordic looking, and again, you got to wonder about our origins and origins of certain DNA lineages.
We sure do, and they are very human-like. And Mike was kind of asking me, well, what is it like? And sometimes, or he's asking me, well, what is Laurel doing? And I'll go look, and if I'm lucky and she allows, I can get a glimpse and see what they're doing up there.
Yeah, and so Laurel is the contact that we've had, the main contact. There's another one too, Kira. Kira's energies are a little intense for Cindy, and she can't handle much with channeling her. And Cindy doesn't always just channel them. Actually, lately she hasn't really been channeling them. She could just communicate just by reaching out in her mind. as the channeling itself was very, very hard on her body. So she's had basically upgrades, and she's able to contact them pretty much at will without any channeling or having to go into a trance. Although sometimes she will go into a trance, usually kind of in the middle of the night, and then I'll hear her talking, and I'll ask who it is, and it'll be Laurel, you know, giving us a message. And so, yeah, we've asked, what's life like up there? She's, gotten to look and see the ships and the inside of the ships, and um, they do wear bluish jumpsuits. You always see them in these bluish jumpsuits.
I do, and that's like when they're actually what we would perceive as when they're working, or they're doing their duties, they're on their mission. And one one of the biggest things I noticed with these beings that they're really big on creation and how they treat children and how their children are raised, and they're extremely careful about who they bring together to bring new beings into existence.
Which is interesting because she's also says that they always have an insignia on their jumpsuits that I'm trying to find the closest one to. It's basically like an Irish Celtic knot. Let's see here.
Celtic knot, actually.
Isn't that interesting that it's Celtic, for instance? Again.
And I didn't know it was Celtic. I just see the symbol, and that's what it is, and that's what it goes back to. So that is interesting. And there's a lot of parallels with us and them. And this is very similar to the insignia, except for the middle circle. I just see the loops, the three leaves or something like this together.
So yeah, if we take out that middle circle, that's what she sees on their jumpsuits. And the jumpsuits are definitely a blue, kind of a bluish with a little bit of like a silver tint to them. That's what I've also perceived as well.
Yeah, and these beings, they learn from a very young age, and the parents, as the children come into the world, the parents are very mindful, and one of the most important things they learn is about their own little bodies and how to heal themselves and how to care for themselves, followed by, as soon as a child can actually sit, meditation. They teach them to do that. Mind control, these things are very important.
And you said that they meditate like 4 hours a day on average.
As grown adults, they'll meditate 4 hours a day, or a good chunk of the day.
Or the relative time of 4 hours. Again, 4 hours is our concept of time here on this planet, but just giving you an idea of the portion of their day that they spend in meditation.
And that goes to healing, that goes to their mission, that goes to, their well-being. It's a very big part of their life, very important.
And, Laurel has this very, very familiar feel. So I asked you before, can you go and see, have we had a past life with her? And so if you would.
We did have a past life with her, and we are volunteers to come back during these changing times. We watched as things fell apart, and it wasn't good. It was quite nasty, where the elites had more control than we wanted. And we didn't like that, and we decided to come down and volunteer.
And you also got that, this life with her that you and I had with her there, it was at the last big event where we were actually up in the ship and watching, the event unfold. And it feels like you said there was major volcanic activity that perhaps was triggered, by technologies.
Well, that's the problem. These elites have, Mother Earth, she already has her own changes that's going on, and the elites, they have ways to control that and manipulate it and cause harm to humans.
and they've done this many times, but this time is different. The energies are different. The galactic superwave that will be coming perhaps in the next 10, 15 years, that I think that's about the timeline we're getting, right?
Right. And we have a lot more light coming in, the photons, the light, where what we would perceive as evil and bad is losing their grip, falling away. But it is a matter of us becoming responsible for ourselves, lifting ourselves up with other people as best we can.
I found it interesting when I asked you, what do they eat? I thought that was really interesting what you were talking about. Now, we went to Mount Shasta, and we had some like encounters with the beings there that are Lemurian in origin, but they also look very Pleiadian, and they're very tall, 7, 8 feet tall, I guess you would say, about that. And they eat vegetarian. They eat totally vegetarian. They grow their own food. They charge their own food with energy as it's growing. Even for their huge size, they are vegetarian. And so tell them about the Pleadian diet.
They were having trouble explaining it to me because I couldn't translate it. I couldn't understand or perceive the information. So they showed me a picture of typical food on their plate, and it is vegetarian, but this food is very sparkly. It's alive. It's really alive, and it's like the ether. When I go to like put my hand on it, or they show me, they can actually put their hand through their food. It's thick, but it's not solid and dense.
So it's a form of energy, a form of condensed life force, like prana.
It is. And also when I look on the other side, like if I'm looking at another being or discarnate, I look on the other side, and the plant life, it's always sparkling. There's always light to it.
Wonderful. Yeah, the ancient rishis, which are the seers that gave us the Vedas and the Upanishads, they were vegetarian because if you eat the animal, they believed you took on the karma of the animal as well as that denser, heavier energy, which would keep you a little bit in lower vibe and not allow you to ascend or move up to the higher frequencies. So, again, this is a consistency that we're seeing with these beings. And so it's interesting because a lot of the time when we talk to Laurel, you see her, she actually like kind of walks and sits down at her desk basically, and then starts to make contact with you.
She does. She's at what we would call a computer, I guess. She does have a desk. She does have a workspace, and she contacts me. She does work on contacting and training other people around the world. It's not just me. And also what's in training is having people get their own personal messages from these beings, which is really important. And we have gotten in the past that we really implore people to reach out to them, see what personal messages you get, because we can give an overall big message, but everybody's individual and everyone is unique, and they have individual messages that they're trying to reach. And a lot of it is about taking care of yourself, your diet, exercise, stuff like that, so you can get these messages.
Yeah, that's where everybody has to do their own part to make those connections. And one of the things that's worked the best for us with people is getting them used to doing Vedic mantras, because the mantras are formulated to open up your chakras and stimulate the kundalini. So we can do affirmations in English or French or Spanish or whatever our native language is. Not quite the same, because the Sanskrit language is formulated in the manner to open the chakras and then get the kundalini flowing. So that was all very, very interesting. It feels like they're very, very human, but they're not quite Homo sapiens sapiens.
They're very conscious about what they do, how they behave, their interactions with each other. They have what we would perceive as cliques or groups of people that work together. Compatibility to them is super, super important. They'll, as far as astrology goes, they'll have people in groups that are astrologically and chemically balanced for each other so they can give their maximum selves to whatever they're doing.
It feels like they're a very focused, organized people, well organized, very focused, and also pretty cohesive, wouldn't you say?
They're so good to each other. They're so kind. I mean, there's no backstabbing, there's no lying. People are raised from a very young age to respect others' feelings, so they know how to talk to one another, they know how to approach one another. And they're just so, they flow together, just flow. It's beautiful.
Well, again, being beings that respect free will, they won't interfere. And it's the same thing with, again, unless you ask, you might not receive. So you have to ask and you have to reach out. And, then lines of communication can be drawn and, communication can be established because they are trying to help us in these times. They want us to plan our own future. Basically, they want us to be self-sufficient. But they realize that we are being controlled, manipulated, and deceived. And so they are looking to help, and they are helping.
They absolutely do. They look down and it's sad to them, and they know that the outcome can be better. They know the outcome can be more in our favor. And that's where they always tell me to talk to everyone and have them work on raising their vibration so that the decisions that are made in your day have a very big impact on how the outcome of the rest of this planet is going to be. It's really important. Your vibration is so important.
I've never asked you, so I don't know if you ventured into it, but have you gotten any impressions of what their planets look like, or how they're organized, structured, towns, cities, things like that?
When I look at them, they're beautiful. There's like this blue hue over everything. And I'm feeling that that's like a life force energy. And then under the blue hue might be like a crystalline or a glass type of object, whatever it might be. I see lots of points to things like, I don't know, for some reason, steeples keep coming into my mind, but they're not really steeples, but it's like a crystalline type environment.
And it sounds still, though, that they're living in harmony with the nature around them.
Very much so. Everything is alive. Everything speaks to them. They speak to it. There's a great deal of respect that goes back and forth with these beings. And, I can't say enough good about them.
And so, we know that the Nazis came in contact, Hitler's, Third Reich came in contact with some Nords. And so I find that interesting, because they also can be pulled downwards. They also can fall, so to speak, because most of these Pleadians are of fifth density, mostly, you would say, right?
They're fifth density. They also have the ability to move back and forth between densities.
Yeah, and I've never asked you, but I mean, what densities can they manipulate?
I'm feeling between third, fourth, and fifth.
Third, fourth, and fifth. Okay. So, they can't appear solid to us, but as we rise up in density and in vibration, it just naturally takes us closer to where they are and more interactions.
Yeah, there's a natural meshing effect between communications and interactions. It's just, I guess the best word is natural.
And so, they are a part of the Galactic Federation.
Yes, Laurel is the people that work around her. They are, but when I look at the whole Galactic Federation, it's made up of many different kinds of beings, not just Pleiadians. There's all kinds of different beings. It's, a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to use the word comical really, but they're so different looking and there's so many of them, and they all really do want to help as best they can.
And then there's also the Pleadian High Council that's come through as well, which is a separate entity.
They are. There's generally there's 4 of them. They're at a table, and they're more about the heart chakra and human growth and giving us direction when it comes to soul growth.
And just to touch briefly on, like, one of the other groups that comes and works on us on a regular basis is the Octurians, and they seem to be the keepers of DNA lineage.
They are, and they also help us grow and learn to use the Merkaba. It's very important, or our light body. So they give the DNA upgrades. They also do healings, and they work on us, and they're all about the light body. Yeah.
Very, very interesting for sure. Now, what I was alluding to before was the fact that, well, then how do we have these Nordic beings that contacted the Third Reich and really were working under the Draco? So, they must have been conquered or must have, quote unquote, fallen in some way.
Yes, you can say fallen, manipulated. They were in a bad position. After all, not everything is always perfect, and beings can get put in situations that they don't necessarily want to be in, and maybe even in some way, somehow, for them, it's for a greater good, but it's more of a personal greater good.
And then, that gets into what's really controlling all that dark energy. And then we start going down the AI road.
And then we have with the AI, and I call it the dragon working together, or Draco, but I see a dragon working next to the AI. And this is going to fall away. The light, the photon belt we're going through is going to force this to fall away. And we're going to be free. We're going to be able to free ourselves. And we have the option to start working on that freedom now. It's not like we have to wait until it's forced. In fact, a lot of people are probably very uncomfortable with their heart chakras because our heart chakras are getting bigger. And if there's blocks there, if you've had traumas, the energy flow is getting greater. And if that's hindered, that can feel uncomfortable.
Well, think about a hose being pinched.
Yep.
That's exactly what it could be like. And I do find it so interesting, too, that with the plague upon the land, there's so many different things that come up with the heart. And I think, there's a reason for that, a correlation going on. Because even with natural circumstances and no outside interference, no diabolical interference, it would still be an issue, because we have to work through. And it was making me think of Rama and Krishna, because, Krishna was the last incarnation of Vishnu, and some believe that Buddha was actually the last. And then Rama was right before that. And Krishna is the heart center, and Rama is the solar plexus center. And so that was seeing that analogy again, as we're moving from age to age. So, we're moving from that solar plexus I am into more of a we in the heart center and a unity consciousness.
Right. We are beginning to mesh together a little bit. And that might actually look like a coming apart in the sense where people are kind of backing out of maybe families so they can just have time to themselves and actually heal that heart chakra. That can be an extremely painful experience. And sometimes that's something that you have to do on your own, or at least with people that you trust a lot. And a lot of times we might not be surrounded by people who are as understanding as we need them to be. So we go ahead and go into a little bit of a seclusion to continue to heal ourselves. And it's a very natural thing to do, to be in seclusion, because your soul knows it's time to heal. It needs to heal. In fact, some people feel like an urgency to heal lately that we've been talking to.
Well, we do both get that at some point there's going to be a splitting of the energy, and you had a good analogy because you said it was like cellular mitosis, but you didn't say mitosis. you just said it's like a cell splitting. And so that's why I have chosen for EEARTS the picture, the icon, because our reality, I do think at some point is going to split. And you'll have those that are going to, quote unquote, ascend up into that 5D realm, and then you're going to have the rest that won't, that will stay in the lower vibrational frequency. And so, the dark energies are trying to get everybody to, buy what they're selling and hang with them in the lower vibrational frequencies. And they're going to do that through keeping us divided, getting us to fight each other, getting us to go to war with each other, and committing atrocities that lead to a shock of the soul in which it'll hinder your ascension.
Right. And not just with this lifetime either. This goes back lifetimes because this is like a buildup for them. They can see what's happening because they've done it before. They've been able to manipulate us before. So we may be, as we're healing, it might not just be for ourselves. We may be chosen to heal a whole ancestral lineage.
And we've been talking about forever how there can be sources of information that are compromised and that are giving you 95% of the truth, but there's 5 to 10% that's going to twist something. And it's a setup for an event, in many cases a bigger event. So when it looks like they've been proven true because they've been saying something for a long time, and the big day comes, and say, for instance, we have our first encounters with, quote unquote, the Galactic Federation or the Pleadians, but the ones that we're seeing are actually the same beings that were working with the Third Reich, the Nords that are under control of the Draco and the darker energies. That's something that's come through to me, and I've been feeling that very, very strongly, that the first ones that they're going to introduce as good guys, are not really the good guys.
Right. I feel that too. And they are kind of setting us up for something. And that's why as we increase in sensitivity, it's very important to really get in touch with that heart chakra so you can understand what kind of beings and what their intentions are when they're before you.
And so, yeah, there's been some people that have said, how do you know you're not channeling a dark entity? How do you know you're not really in contact with AI? Well, once your Kundalini's activated and once the energy's flowing, these things can't be hidden because you feel it. You feel it and know it. And again, that's Gnosis. That's what, the whole point of Gnosticism is direct knowledge. And it's nothing that you're learning left brain. It's just like, it's a feeling that envelops you. You could see through something to its core, and if it's true, if it's lying, if it has harmful intentions, or if it's, very benevolent.
It happens often when we work on people. I can feel someone's underlying intent. I mean, somebody might not even understand their underlying intent, but I can feel it. When a being is before me, any being, I take over that feeling. I take on that persona. So that then becomes me, and I'm reading that being.
Their energy. And a lot of this is from past life work, which we've been able to access of our own, and know that we've had multiple lives doing this type of work in the past. And so, like for us, it's just so natural to just go and do mantras, meditate, and QiGong. It doesn't take any effort. It's really, really comfortable, but that's because past lives, as a Buddhist monk, for instance, doing that. And so it's just remembering. I remember my first Reiki teacher, she kind of went into a little trance, and she looked at me after giving me the attunements and said, "Oh, you've done all this before." She said, "You're just remembering who you are."
Yeah, and that's, kind of how it goes. If you have these inklings to, or, if you're around people and you notice people are talking to you, telling you their life stories, or even if you're in a group of people and the whole entire mood lifts around, you have some abilities there, and that comes from past life.
So there's no hiding it.
No.
Once you get to a certain point, there's no hiding it. You're going to know the person's intentions. They will not be able to lie to you. It's just like reading energy. We can see the energy around people's bodies, so again, you could get perception of colors. You could tell when they're lying. It's just clear as day. And so that's part of why the elite are doing what they're doing, because they know the masses are waking up, and we're going to recognize clearly. We're going to be looking at them and saying, "You're lying."
Right. And it can be a little disturbing in the sense where you can feel the deceit. That's never a comfortable feeling. But you know what? At least you feel it and you know it, and you know what to do with it from there.
So I hope you guys found this interesting and informative, and we'll be doing a lot more about this and talking more about this in the days to come. As always, thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Anybody that needs to book a session with us, we operate on a donations basis. Just reach out to us, EEARTS at Proton Mail or evolutionaryenergyarts at gmail.com, and we'll set up a time. As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
God bless and namaste.